Hello everyone, my name is Lowko and welcome to some more StarCraft 2 Legacy of the Void. Now today I want to be going over the Zerg build order that I've been executing in both Zerg vs Terran and Zerg vs Protoss, and I've actually got a pretty good win-loss rate in both of those matchups. However, this is going to be a Legacy of the Void build, first and foremost obviously, and on top of that I'm not going to be making this video as I do in my, I guess, like original build order videos, for the simple reason that there is still a lot of room for improvement. Instead, what I'm gonna do is talk about the build order and hopefully, put a couple of good ideas in your head while actually showing you a game where I execute a build, that is at least like near perfect execution, okay? There's still some room for improvement, like I said. I'm not completely sure about the middle part of the game. I'm not completely sure if I should add on Banelings earlier on or maybe go for something like Infestors or even Mutalisks or Corruptors, something like that. But I'm gonna try and give you a good guideline to go for when playing Zerg vs Terran and Zerg vs Protoss in Legacy of the Void, obviously. So, the basic idea of the build order, by the way, you go for Hatchery first, obviously, and then a spawning pool and a gas geyser, pretty standard. The basic idea of this build order is to get +3, +8 Ultralisk out as soon as you possibly can, okay? That is basically what everything is aiming for, that's basically what everything is meant for. While you will see me get other units out as well in the middle part of the game and early on as well, they are really just there to get to the point where I can safely go up to a Hive and like start all of these units out. Now in this specific game, my opponent is gonna play very aggressive. So, it should give you a good indication on how many units you can be able to get away with and how many workers you will be able to make as well while being in this situation. Now, I'm fully aware that my opponent will not execute the greatest of greatest strategies, but it should still, give you a relatively good example. So, Hatchery first into a spawning pool, into a gas geyser. Generally speaking, right now, it's 13 Overlord, 17 Hatchery, 20... spawning pool and then 20 gas geyser, but like I said, you can obviously switch that up a little bit, no big deal whatsoever. As soon as the hatchery finishes, you basically want to start up 4 queens as soon as possible and a set of Zerglings as well. The Zerglings are going to be meant for scouting, whereas the queens are going to be meant for, early game defense as well as crew spreading and all those kind of things. Now, I say 4 queens as soon as possible. The basic idea is that you obviously make 2 at once and then immediately make 2 more. Now, as always, I will actually leave the written build or as far as I've gotten so far in the description of this video as well. So if you prefer a written version instead, you can have a look over there. So I'm going to be injecting with the queen, and most important to note right now, because this is all standard, right? Like everyone that's played Legacy of the Void and Heart of the Swarm has seen this before. The most important thing is that you leave the drones in the gas geyser early on and start up the Metabolic boost upgrade for the Zerglings. So this is going to be a pretty early Zergling speed, but obviously pretty standard as well. Now we're not going to tech up to a Hive immediately, we're actually going to go for the double upgrades much earlier on. So what we're going for is, well, I'm going to go for a relatively quick third right now as well because, I see that my opponent is actually going for a natural already as well. I'm going for a relatively quick third base, but I'm going to start up my scouting or my crew spreading right now, and I'm going to make as many drones as I possibly can. Now, as soon as I hit 200 gas in the main base off of that one gas geyser, I will start up double evolution chambers. The reason why I start them then is because I know for a fact that when I start them at that point, they will finish up when I actually reach 250 gas, at which point I can start +1/+1. So there you can see, I'm starting up my double evolution chamber. Now, as soon as Zergling speed finishes, I make a couple of Zerglings. Those Zerglings are gonna be mainly meant for scouting and to keep tabs on what my opponent is doing. If I realize he's making a lot of army, obviously I will go ahead and, try my very best to match that army. But I'm not going for a Roach Warren, I'm not going for a Baneling Nest, I'm just going pure Zerglings and banking on the fact that the early upgrades are gonna be very powerful in defending the aggression that my opponent can do. So right now I notice, okay, my opponent is going for some aggression. I'm instead right now flexibly following these up with more Zerglings. Obviously, I got a couple queens out as well. I'm gonna start my +1/+1 upgrades as early as I possibly can. And, well, I'm gonna end up losing a creep tumor right there, but not the biggest of deals. But my end goal is to go up to Ultralisk, okay? And I need to start those upgrades this early on if I want to get them, to be used. Now, at the same time, I still want to have enough minerals as well to actually make the Zerglings, which is the main reason why we're only actually having one gas geyser. And obviously, I'm then also allowed to actually make the third base. Now, since my opponent seems to have a lot of army, I'm just transitioning into more and more Zerglings. I'm just trying to get more and more of them out. Obviously, if my opponent wouldn't be aggressive right now, I would have just followed this up with more and more drones instead. So I should have honestly started my lair up a little bit. I'm obviously preoccupied right now. The next 100 gas after starting +1/+1 should be used to actually get the lair started up as well. My opponent sadly is managing to get a Widow Mine in there. But at this point, I know I'm pretty safe to go ahead and start droning up once more. So as soon as I hit lair, that is where a lot of deviation can be, can be played, I suppose. I'm starting up my lair, starting up extra gases, starting up extra drones right here, just as you would have expected. But at the lair tech is where you can basically start switching things up. The basic idea is that you start going for the infestation pit immediately. You want to get the infestation pit going immediately because at that point you will start the hive up very early on as well. Even like, I think it's like 6.5 minutes or something silly like that in the actual in-game time. The replay clock is a little bit different. But you can also change it up with, for example, a Spire. You can change it up for a Hydralisk Den. You can change it up for Infestors. You can even go for Swarm Host. You could go for Speed Banelings. You could go for Corruptor. You could go for pretty much every single Zerg mid-game unit that is relevant. But my go-to one is Hydralisk. So as soon as the lair finishes, I start a couple of things at once. I start the Infestation Pit. I start the Hydralisk Den. And obviously with that, the immediate Hive as soon as I can. And I'm gonna go for Hydralisk in the middle part of the game. They're great at cleaning up drops and they're very good at pretty much everything else. But on top of that, I'm going immediately into +2/+2. +2/+2 is really the bread and butter. That's really where things are becoming a lot easier. But as soon as +1/+1 finishes, you can go ahead and obviously spend some of your minerals on Zerglings as well, because they will be extremely powerful. So I'm trying to defend a couple of places at once right now, having a couple Zerglings in the main because there is a dropship happening. But you can see I am forced to clean up most of this aggression with pure Zergling. Now if you're noticing that your opponent is going for a lot, or like a lot of Hellions, and you really have a hard time defending it, by all means throw down a Roach Warren. If you're giving this a try yourself, by all means throw down a Roach Warren. So I'm gonna go up to the Hive immediately. Now it looks like my opponent will be able to snipe down my my Hydralisk Den. No big deal. I'm just gonna be able to remake that one and go for a bit of a faster Hive instead. I should be starting this up pretty much immediately. But on top of that, as you can see, I've been defending with pure Zerglings with +1/+1, and the worker kill tab is very, very low. There we go. So I am starting up the Hive right now. This Hive will finish up roughly at the same time as +2/+2 will finish, and the Hive is really where things get a lot easier. Up to this point, the only thing I've been worrying about is surviving. I have been scouting around to figure out how many drones I can get away with, but that's it. I've not been scouting around to try and do any damage to my opponent. I'm really not trying to do anything at all. But obviously, if I have a massive army like I do right here, I will try my very hardest to do a little bit of damage as well. Which is, relatively straightforward, obviously. If you have a lot of army, no reason at all to sit back at home. Now, with that comes the obvious reason that executing a build like this is not easy. You need to multitask very hard. My opponent leaving the front door open right there, by the way. Very nice of him. And I'm going to be able to start transitioning towards a couple of Hydralisks. Now, normally I would have the Hydro Den up earlier, obviously. And I would try and go for about 20 or so Hydralisks at the very most to snipe down the Medevacs. I've noticed that Medevacs are really, the one unit that keep Terran in the game if they aren't already, winning from all the drops and whatnot. And obviously, if you can kill the Medevacs, that's basically where things go a lot easier. So Hive is done. Couple things you want to start. Immediately, you want to go for Adrenal Glands and go for the Ultralisks Cavern. Adrenal Glands will allow your Zerglings to go up to +40% attack speed compared to the +18% in Heart of the Storm and Wings of Liberty. And Ultralisk will now get +4 armor instead of +2 from the Chitinous Plating upgrade. So right now, I've already got the 4th base up and going as well. Because my opponent took the 3rd, I took the 4th. So it's all about responsive play right there. And I'm going to try and actually get the gases going here for the most part. The gases is what really is important for this 3rd base for me. I don't really care about any, or for this 4th base rather. I don't really care about any of the minerals because, well, if I can get some workers there, it's nice as well. If I need to transfer a couple workers from my natural or my main, I will send them over there, but it's mainly there for the gas. Ultralisk, very, very gas hungry upgrade, and since we are also starting up +3/+3 right now, as you can see, well, I already started +3 attack. Can't start +3 armor yet, but there's a lot of gas units that you need to start going for. So once again, to recap, Early game, it's all about survival and getting the upgrades on as soon as possible. Mid game, it's all about staying alive once again, dealing some damage with some leftover army that you may have had after cleaning up the timing attacks, and then tacking up towards the Hive, getting Ultralisk Cavern going, and as soon as you get the Ultralisk Cavern going, make the Chitinous Plating upgrade, start Adrenal Glands, start +3/+3, and then simply wait. Very important, just simply wait. Get a big army out with Ultralisks, get a big army out with Zerglings, and you will pretty much be able to, you know, win every single game. Now, versus Terran specifically, it seems to tie in very nicely with the timing attacks that they do. Right as you finish up +1/+1, they will be moving across the map. Right as you finish up 2/2, they will be moving across the map. And right when you finish up your Ultralisk, they will also be moving across the map. So this is basically a hard counter to pretty much everything that Terran has as far as bio goes. Obviously, if you see that your opponent is going for mech, you may have to switch a couple things up. Add Vipers to this army composition. If you notice that your opponent is going for, you know, like a lot of siege tanks, definitely add something like Vipers, or maybe even, you know, maybe even like more Ultralisk instead of like adding on Zergling, something like that. Or if you notice that your opponent is going like really heavy into air, consider going for Corruptors or Hydralisk or something like that. But for the most part, try and adjust for what is happening. Let this build be sort of like your core go-to strategy, and then adjust by what is happening. As far as Protoss goes, obviously same situation. Scout what is happening, adjust to what is going on, but use this as like your core composition. So if you notice in the middle game, for example, versus Protoss, that he's really going heavy into the air, you may want to consider adding on a third Evo chamber, getting up the missile upgrades and going heavier into Hydras. Or you may want to consider throwing up a Spire right there, going for the Corruptors, delaying the Hive a little bit maybe to get a couple of Corruptors out. But try and like stick to this plan, make this like the core of your strategy. And honestly, I've had a very hard time losing games, especially once you get to Hive. Once you get this army composition out right here, it is practically immediately game over for pretty much everyone that is in the game. But it's all about staying alive. So hopefully this gave you a bit of an insight in a Zerg build order and a Zerg strategy that you can execute in StarCraft 2 Legacy of the Void. If you haven't already, hit that like button. If you want to see more, hit that subscribe button as well. And as always, build order will be down below. I want to thank you guys all for watching. Have an amazing day. Do not forget to smile. And I'll see you in the next one.